to page Kufayin. Kuf Yud Gimel, I'm sorry. Wow, can't see. Okay, Kuf Yud Gimel. This is the Rakia Bein Mayim L'Mayim. Kasa B'Torah B'Yom HaSheni. And God should help us. It's not such an easy, these are not such easy ideas. So he said, B'Yom HaSheni L'Maisa Bereshis. So the second day of Bereshis, it said, the Pasuk says, Yehi Rakia B'Soch HaMayim. So we translate that word as rakia as firmament in English, usually. Pirusha sheyeh krum. It's like a krum. It's a crust or some kind of a barrier. Mapsik be'emsach haguf shel Erich Anpin. So this is the rakia that he's talking about. He calls it a krum. I think we call it a parsa some places. V'inyan a krum kul lahavdech bebein chetzeh elyon the chetzeh tachton. So the reason why you have this here is to divide between the upper half and the lower half. Krum, just like a crust. So he means to say what the krum is, a diaphragm that's found in the middle of the intestinal area of the digestive area of a man. So this is a mechitza that interrupts or separates. So he said between the upper avarim, which, for example, the breathing apparatus come for example, like the reya, the lungs and the heart. So, for example, that's one section. There's a diaphragm there between them. And then he said, ha'avarim atachtonim are the lower avarim, go in the cover like the liver, and the intestines, and so on and so forth. So where does this actually krum start? So it starts at the front, underneath the chest. And it falls as it's slanting downwards, going backwards, or downwards. And it ends from that. That's where the diaphragm goes down to the tibor. Shall Erich Anpin. Now we're just talking about Erich Anpin. So he said, "V'hidech Abba v'Ima hakolenim malvisham al Erich Anpin l'mala b'makam hakrum." So this krum, he's coined this phrase krum. I think it's not like a crust like krum b'democha that we might have seen someplace else. Sounds like it's a diaphragm or a krum. I don't know. So his l'mala b'makam hakrum. So then you have the Erich Anpin gets divided up there, and Abba and Eva, they actually are surrounding him in the area of the breathing apparatus. The parts of Zair Anpin, Malvish al Erich Anpin, Lamata b'makam hakrum. So they're down below in the place of the krum. V'nimsa shemakam hakrum shebe'emsa guf Erich Anpin. This is in the middle of the body of Erich Anpin. Hu hagavul v'hamechitza. So this is really the boundary. This is the wall. Hamapsekes bein partzufi abba ve'ima that divide between partzufi and abba ve'ima. The mala, which are up above in the breathing part of the equation, the bein partzufi Zair Anpin, ha'omad damat between the partzufi of Zair Anpin, which is down below, and then the pasuk says va'amar pasuk od v'yehi mavdil bein mayim l'mayim. So then it says that but it's talking about water here, so it makes it separated between two different kinds of water. So the first analogy is that it separates Abba v'Ima from Zair Anpin. So now let's go on and see what else. He says the pirusha shahakrum yehei mapsik v'mavdil bein hamayim el yonim. What's mayim el yonim? Ashachal lamala b'chakrum. The bein hamayim atachtonim v'shachal lamata b'chakrum. Now this also mayim is another word for chesed. Maybe that's where he's going. I don't know. The reason is kedei lahavdil bein the kodesh and bein the kodesh. There's two different kinds of kodesh here. Is to really divide between those two. Kolomar lahavdil bein bechinas kodesh. He says kodesh between the as of bechina of kodesh. Shu chetzia tachton shel Erich Anpin the matach krum, which is the part that's below Erich Anpin, the lower part of half of Erich Anpin. The bechinas kodesh kedoshim shu chetzia elyon the malam krum, which is up above that. Like we said, like that, so here we talk about the concept of a parochas. So it's the same kind of idea. It separates those two areas, but now he's saying specifically it's referring to, I'm going to keep going back on this, it's referring to the breathing apparatus and the digestive apparatus are separated. B'kach gam hakrum hu parochas masach hamavdil. So the same thing is that this is a masach or a screen of some sort. Shemavdil ben chetzia elyon the chetzia tatu ganal. Then Nimsa, so it comes like this: Atika the Zair. Shahakrum hu masach shemavdil ben Erich Anpin shuhu b'bechinas kodegadashim. So this also is separating between Erich Anpin, which is Kodek Kadashim, the Bain Zair Anpin, Shehu Bechinas Kodesh, which is like a second generation, it's like a ha'ara, my words, of the Kodesh Kadashim, of Erich Anpin. Shahari Reb Zair Anpin, Malbish, the Erich Anpin, the Mata, B'makom HaKrum, Shehu Bechinas Kodesh, because that's where you find Erich Anpin. He's in the area of the Krum, Bechinas Kodesh, which is called Kodesh Bilvad Ka'amor. V'Omer Odin, he says more, Isparash, Da'af al Gab Shazer Anpin Nifresh, so it's separated. Menivdach Erich Anpin, and it's also divided off from Erich Anpin, Ayidecha Krum, because that's what the Krum does for it. He said, Izdabak, Im Kol Zeh, but no matter what, Nishar Zer Anpin, Davik Erich Anpin, but it's still stuck on Erich Anpin. Why? And even though that there's a hepsek between it and Erich Anpin, let's say, so to speak, it's really hard for me to picture it in some ways. Ki zer Anpin lo isparash mamish, because it never really separates from it. Lo nitvash v'nivdach mamish me Erich Anpin. It can't be. Why? Shahare, he says Zer Anpin malvish as Erich Anpin, because it covers Erich Anpin. It's not inside of Zair Anpin or on equal to Zair Anpin. It's outside of Zair Anpin, and of course there's some sort of a parochas here that separates the two of them. It's a little bit difficult for me to picture this. That's Erich Anpin mechatiber lamata misdaveg bo bebechutz, and he on the outside he clings to him. So no matter what, there's a relationship there, but there's a parochas in between the two of them. Now let's go on. This is a little bit more. So in his boyer, so in a way that, we're going to explain this, he says. Krum mapsik be'emsech beguf Erich Anpin, that Krum that we're talking about, it's in the middle of Erich Anpin, nikra rekia. So going back to what we said before, this goes with the word rekia, Krum and rekia. Kachagam yisod de'ima. Now this is where it gets a little harder. He says, Kachagam yisod de'ima. So he said, now let's take the yisod of ima, amislavish barosh Zair Anpin, which is now in the rosh of Zair Anpin. He said, besod das, so she's in his das, nikra b'shem rekia. So now we said the yisod, this is also a concept of rekia. The vihishugam came b'chinas parsa masak, because it's also that same concept. So wherever you see the word Rekia and the word Parsa and the word Masach and all of these words, or he has Krum, he used that word. Okay, I was just counting up what Krum is, the gematria, just in my head, just trying to see why he used that particular word. Gam came b'chinas Parsa Masach mekeven sheyisod de'ima mapsik mavdil bein or hadas. So since the concept of yisod, of ima, acts as an interruption. A mavde bein or hadas, the light that is going into this das, shall hamochin, the ima, the bein haguf de Zair Anpin, between the guf of Zair Anpin, so she's a barrier over there too. That's a yisod. Because it carries in the mochin, but they're separated off from actually being into Zair Anpin. V'amnam kasher ab yisod, the ima mispashet, the malana, as it spreads downwards. The mislavish b'toch hapeh shel Zair Anpin, and here's an idea. Where does the yisod? We never heard this before. We heard that the yisod of ima goes into the head of Zair Anpin and goes down 3 lines. Chacham Bagadati. Now he says that the yisod, the ima, but actually it's when it spreads downwards, it's also clothed in the mouth of Zair Anpin, and it's a Zair. Nibka yisod the ima, and when it's lodged in the peh of Zair Anpin, it breaks open. V'hagavuras the das yotzim l'chutz. Then the gavuras of this dat, they go out from that mouth. Derek pad the Zair Anpin through the mouth of Zair Anpin. V'lekach nikra yisod the ima hamislavish bepez. So that now I don't know if he's trying to tell me that the ultimate place, there is a place there that it is Slavish, but we understand that the yisod of ima ultimately, that is the Ataris yisod, winds up at the chaza of Zah. Here he's talking about the mouth of Zah. So I just have to think that this is a station along the road down to where ultimately this will be released. But here's what he says. Let me see it again. Or what kind of metaphor this is, I'm not sure. But the kach nikra yisod the ima hamislavish bepeh, which is clothed in the pair of Zair Anpin, b'shem puma amale ravavan. It's a mouth peh medaba gedolos. It's saying great things. What's that mean? Greatnesses. The fi shahagavuras the das yotzim so dibor shall kaf beis osius. All right, you got to read that word this again. He says the puma mamala rabavim. What does it mean that he says that the yesod of imam is lavish inside of the mouth of Zair Anpin? And then he said bedaber gogdolos. It's going to stay out great things. What does that mean? The fi shahagavuras. What are great things? The das yotzim so dibor. They come out of the mouth. But they're in the concept, this is the creation of the concept of dibur, speech, the speech which uses 22 letters. But na'asim b'chutz oros mekifim, and when they're outside of the mouth, then become oros mekifim. V'zeh b'sod peh medaber. This is the secret of a concept which is called the speaking mouth. Peh medaber, the mouth speaks. So that is because, why? Because there's the yesod of ima is there, and there's the gevuros come out in the form of makifim. And since now this is an aspect of that light of the Yisod of Ima that's come outside, and it's stronger than what's inside, still inside of Ima, and therefore they're called Ravravan, Gedolos. So he says this is the Gedolos. What's the Gedolos? The Gedolos is the Makifim that come out of the mouth. So apparently a stop along the way of the Yisod of Ima has a place that lodges in the mouth, and it causes a certain amount of these 22 letters, let's say, to come out of the mouth, and as a result of that, those are gevuros, because speech is actually gevuro. So he says gedolos. So he's antik. So he says amnam hachasadim shal muach hadas, but there's a chasadim in the muach hadas too. Einim yots in the chutz, they never go out there. Ella nenatkim b'ne'akrim mimakoma, but rather instead they're uprooted from their place. Ashecha b'yisod the ima, which have been governed the Zair Anpin, which is in the throat of Zair Anpin. V'yordim ishtal shel lamata b'guf Zair Anpin, and they wind up going, as we understand, it goes down into the chazeh. It goes into the body of Zair Anpin, but b'chinas oras penimim, which are the exterior lights. So now we have the origin of two different kinds of lights here. So that's what you call in Kisrim. Zair Anpin anikroim Kisrim ketanim. Kisarim ketanim, they're called small crowns. So bechisha zine is zine mayim, with 5 different types of water. So there's a shefa that comes in the 5 chasadim. So I did this, he didn't do this. He says 5 times the word mayim. Mayim is a gematria of 90. 5 times 90 makes a gematria of 450, which is the gematria of 10 times 45, which is the machodash. Now I just made that up, but I just saw that in here. I don't know if that's where he's going. So anyway, there are 5 different types of mayim, and he says on this karim, biyom asheni the ma'aser bereshis. He said, that's what he's an awesome beloved mayim chayim, and you put some living water onto it. Pirush. Now let's go back to Ima. This is the Yesod of Ima, right? She'ima no senes the mashpaz al Zair Anpin shefa chasadim. So the chasadim pour out from the Yesod of Ima. Ve'ila chasadim nekroim mayim chayim, and they're called the living waters. Because we understand Chesed and Mayim go together. Became she'ima mekabelas as a chasadim, and since Ima takes the chasadim, ha'elam ha'abba, she's getting the chasadim from Abba, because he's on the right side, that's the right of Chachan. Hanikra Chaim, because he's also called life, because without Abba you got nothing. So the Chachma Techaya, the Chachma brings life. The Chein Nekroyim B'Shem Mayim Chaim, so therefore it's called living waters. So it goes on El Keli. So this El Keli. Kolomar, Shechasada Mishpash B'Sechel B'Guf, V'Chakli, the Kli for this, the Zair Anpin, Kedei the Hakiyos V'Hagdilu, to order to bring him life and to make him grow. Mavara Oz explains more. That's what it says. Hu Elokim Chayim O Melech Olam. Kolomar Ima, Anikra Melech Olam. So that's coining phrases. He says that Ima is called Melech Olam, the king of the world. That's what she is. She brings a life. The Zair Anpin, that says she keeps them alive. A little bit more. I walk before Hashem in the land of the living. Where does he get his energy? Because his roots are planted al mayim chayim, which are this living wife, and the ima, which is coming from Abba, going into ima, and then coming into him. Like it says like this, that we have that phrase, Yuval, he says lashon ima. There we go, the Chaim again, as Hashem Elokecha, Kolomar, Havaya Shul Zair Anpin, Nikrat Sror HaChaim, it's called the binding of life. Mifnation Im Shakim Bo Shef and Mayim Chaim, because that's where the Shef and the Mayim Chaim comes to. The Eitz HaChaim is in the garden. Kolomar Zair Anpin, and Nikra Eitz HaChaim. Now Turah B'toch HaGan is planted in that garden. Shuhu HaMalchus, which is Malchus. So what's the idea? Kedei Lahashpia Bo. That's the whole idea. This is the tree that ultimately wants to feed the root. Kedei Lahashpia Bo Shefach HaChasadim B'mayim Chaim Shem B'kabel Be'ima. That's all the shefach that he wants to bring down into the Nukva, the Zair Anpin, and that's the shear. Thank you so much for learning with me today.